Another way to define where we're heading is what is possible, and that is the focus of our next possible talk. How the lessons we're learning right now can be used to identify future therapies. I'm pleased to introduce Shoaib Dada, head of the Digital Strategy Group at Takeda's Data Sciences Institute. With his colleagues, he creates patient-centric digital strategies for developing novel endpoints and making studies more resilient. He also spent 13 years at Biogen as part of the team that launched MS Paths, a healthcare system using data to develop a standard of care for over 10,000 MS patients around the world. Shoaib?
Hi, and thank you for listening to this talk. My name is Shoaib Dada. I head R&D digital strategy at Takeda, which is a large pharmaceutical company. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the lessons that we learned and are still learning in the fight against COVID and how we're using it to inform a new way of working at Takeda. Before I go into that, however, I'd like to frame the discussion a bit by stating a couple of observations. The first observation is that companies can rise in unprecedented ways when challenged. And you see this fairly routinely in smaller companies, especially startups. Occasionally, you also see this in very large companies. The second observation is that industries as a whole can work in previously unimaginable ways when challenged. And we're seeing a real life example of this today during the pandemic across a number of industries. When you step back and think about it for a second, what's common to both these observations is an existential threat that serves as a rallying cry. However, what's also true, and this is especially true for larger companies and therefore important to a company like ours, is that larger companies tend to revert back to the status quo once the threat is passed or is contained. And so it's really important to understand why that happens. At Takeda, what we're really interested in is how the industry and the company responded, identifying what we wanted to preserve and understanding why these shifts do not sustain internally, and then deliberately addressing these barriers to sustainability, supporting and incentivizing the change. So shifting gears to what we saw across the industry, Takeda is a founding member of the COVID R&D Alliance, which is a fairly large alliance of a number of both pharmaceutical companies as well as other members of the life sciences ecosystem. The COVID R&D Alliance fits in very well to Takeda's ethic, a value-based system, which we called patient trust reputation business. We call it PTRB internally, and which guides a lot of our decisions. What I really wanted to highlight within the COVID R&D Alliance work, however, is the output that's coming out of the data sharing workstream. The data sharing workstream, in the course of about 6 months, has come to a really brave vision where they're looking at how clinical trial data and real world data are interlinked, and how clinical trial data informs, supports, clarifies, and even affirms real-world data, while real-world data can inform, support, clarify, and possibly even obviate the need for clinical trial data. What's important, though, is how they've chosen to do this. Across the entire ecosystem, they're choosing to do this through the standardization of definition, methods, data structures, algorithms, endpoints, and even protocols. And if you think about it, these are things that we in the industry have been working on for years, possibly even decades. But it took only 6 months for such a large group of companies to centralize along these concepts and try and make this a reality. Looking at digital trials and the industry response, and I think our observation is not unique to us. Anyone who's been working in this space has seen this. COVID definitely accelerated the adoption of digital trials. It was a huge catalyst for the adoption of digital technologies in clinical research, which has been languishing in the innovation space for a very long time. And you saw longstanding barriers to innovation or adoption vanish overnight. Telemedicine became a standard practice in healthcare and clinical research in a matter of months. And if you think about it, telemedicine has been trying to get a foothold in the healthcare industry for over a decade. We've also seen healthcare authorities to be very progressive and receptive. On the flip side, however, the observation is that we as an industry just weren't prepared. Our operational processes and regulations don't translate to a digital world. We scrambled, there was a lot of confusion around consent required for telemedicine in lieu of study visits, how you obtain these consents remotely, how you ensure compliance via remote monitoring, and also the health solutions ecosystem, the digital health solutions ecosystem is still an emergent one, and it's not ready to scale across global trials. But perhaps the key learning over here really was that technology was rarely the limiting factor in our ability to respond to the need. And if we want to see this grow and scale, we have to pay attention to processes and regulation and bring them to readiness for such a future. We also saw that digital tools created opportunities to reduce patient burden. This is central to the benefits of digital health tools. And what's emerging within Takeda is a vision where digital tools really are used in two ways. We see this concept, if you will, of data and digital being two halves of the same coin. And within the digital tool space, we're seeing digital tools for routine digital suites. These are agnostic protocols. These are agnostic to disease. They're ready to deploy in any study. They have standardized data collection and analytics. And things that fall in this category, for example, are telemedicine, e-consent, vital signs, remote physiological monitoring, weight, things of that nature. We also see disease-specific digital tools. These are unique to a therapeutic area or disease. They're used for biomarkers. They're used as endpoints in trials, where we leverage what's research in academia or develop our own. And examples of these, for example, are gait monitoring in Parkinson's, sleep monitoring, narcolepsy, things of that nature. Within the company, what Takeda did was form a working group of about a dozen senior leaders who were tasked with identifying the learnings across the industry and internally from COVID to enhance our approach to drug development at Takeda and really inform what we call a new way of working. What this group of leaders did was assess what was happening in the company, what was happening externally, and really centralizing across a number of strategic pillars. These pillars are protocol resiliency, which are really central to what we call lean and resilient trials, digital health platforms, and acceleration of their use, something that was already in process at Takeda, but really got accelerated, regulatory strategies, and equally importantly, what it will take to make this change happen at a company like Takeda through training and addressing the needs of culture. To make sure that we weren't missing any good ideas, and this wasn't just the idea of 12 people, what we did in parallel was we ran an idea crowdsourcing campaign that we also call Silver Linings, where the entire R&D department was asked to submit ideas around these strategic pillars that we evaluated. It was a 5-week campaign. What we saw was a lot of engagement across departments, which was great. We identified 6 ideas for further investment, but what was really heartening was a couple of things. One was many of these ideas validated what we were already thinking, but also told us that there's enough of a base within the company that is ready to move to a new way of working. So the next steps for us is really preparation and planning of these ideas into programs that we're going to systematically launch and implement over the next few months and years while we monitor and assess it. So coming towards the end, what does this mean for digital health and biopharma? From a personal perspective, I think we really need to look at what's been happening, for example, in the data sharing workstream. What's very clear is for digital health to succeed in biopharma, industry needs to collaborate pre-competitively. We need to collaborate around methodology. We need to collaborate around measure standardization, device verification, analytical validation of devices, for example, around routine physiological monitoring. Today, every company is independently developing these device verification, analytical validation data packages, and that doesn't really benefit anyone. If we can standardize around a methodology, if we agree to share data packages, this makes it a lot easier to progress this into routine clinical trials. Takeda is very interested in working with existing consortia and society to develop this and equally to share the data across the industry. What's equally clear to us is that our external partners cannot go this alone. CROs, device manufacturers, platform developers cannot make these decisions for us, and it's really incumbent upon us as an industry to band together and standardize across these. What's really heartening, though, is that the infrastructure for collaboration already exists. For example, the excellent work done at City that was taken forward now by the DIME Society, the playbook that came out last week. These are all great, but they need nurturing and supporting by us. So with that, I'll end this talk. Thank you for listening, and I hope you join us in this journey.
Thank you, Shoaib, for sharing that possible talk, and continued good luck in your essential work.